What's up, YouTube? It's the Action Figure Grader coming back to you with another figure variant discussion. And I thought today, why beat around the bush? My favorite character is sitting right there on the shelf, and I haven't talked about him that much yet. And so I thought we'd talk about Boba Fett. Boba Fett, the notorious, baddest, coolest, very few words bounty hunter. And, for those of you who watched the movie, I think he's got a total of like 8 or 9 lines across Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. So there really is no good reason why he's so popular. But nevertheless, I'm a sucker for him. I love him. And I thought we'd talk about him today. And so what I have in front of you are 4 vintage variants, all loose and graded, as well as the 2013 Black Series release, also graded. And I thought we'd just kind of go through them. And I also, I have some notes here on some of the other variants that are out there. And obviously Boba Fett, given his popularity, these variants are very expensive. Not the ones I have, but the other ones I'm going to talk about. So we'll save those for last. But let's kind of talk briefly about the history of the figure. Longtime collectors know exactly what I'm talking about. After the first Star Wars, A New Hope, Boba Fett was advertised as a mail-away exclusive, and he was going to have a rocket-firing backpack, but some child choked to death on a missile or accessory from a Battlestar Galactica toy, and so they quickly shelved the plans for a rocket-firing Boba Fett, and instead replaced him with a rocket that's glued in his back. And so, and you'll still see, I mean, there's several folks out there, like Blacked Out Ewoks and a few others, who have many vintage carded Star Wars figures where the rocket-firing Boba Fett was advertised. There's even some where they've taken factory stickers and put it over the rocket-firing backpack once they knew that they were no longer going to release it. But essentially, there's 3 main variants. And then there are some harder to find variants that are also very expensive. The lesser, more common variants were made in Hong Kong and Taiwan. So the countries of origin for those were Hong Kong and Taiwan. Everyone seems to think that the really, really dark belt, which I'll show you in a little while here, but this very, very dark belt, that means it was made in Taiwan, and then the lighter brown belt means it was made in Hong Kong. Well, that's actually not true. Hong Kong and Taiwan both made the dark brown and the light brown belt variants. And so I'll show you those here in a second. And then there's also a tri-logo variant as well as some harder to find ones. But, the main ones that you see online for sale or at, online toy stores, whatever, they are the Hong Kong and the Taiwan made figures. So Let's start here on the left. This is a 19. Sorry about the focus there, but 1979 Kenner Star Wars loose action figure, Hong Kong, Boba Fett, and this one's graded 90. As you can see here, it's got the darker belt. I call it the black belt, but it looks like it could be a black or like a darker brown. But and then when you compare it to the other Hong Kong that I have. You can see the difference in the belt color. Wow, this thing takes forever to focus. Come on, focus for me. There you go. And then this one, just for informational purposes, is the 19... Man, my camera is not autofocusing for some reason. 1979 Kenner Star Wars loose action figure Hong Kong Boba Fett 85+. So I got an 85+ and a 90... And they're both very high grades, but the main difference being really the difference in the belt color. There is another Hong Kong variant, and it's really hard to tell because AFA does not break it down as much. But we're not going to be able to see much here. But the country of origin and the date stamp are on the back of the calves for each of these. On the left is the date stamp. And Lucasfilm Limited, and then on the right is where they usually put the country of origin. Well, there is another variant that's very slight that has the country of origin and the date stamp really, really, really tightly written out, and so it's a harder variant to find because AFA and all the other grading companies, they don't really differentiate between that. But if you go online, and I'll put a link in the description below, but if you go online, you can see that it's a much different type font. It's much tighter type font for that variant, and that's only with Hong Kong where they have that. So technically, there's 3 different variations. That tighter type font is only with the letter brown belt. So the 3 variants again are the tighter type font, which I don't have an example of, the light brown belt, and then the dark brown belt. So that kind of covers the 3 different variants that are available out there. I mean, if there was a way to tell that by the grading companies, if they went into some more detail, which I think they should, then I certainly would get one because it's not particularly expensive. It's a fairly common figure based on everything I've read online. The Taiwan versions are here, and as you can see, very similar. Not really much difference in the sculpts of the figures. You can see with the Taiwan on your right, he's got the darker belt. Also, the green color is a little darker. There is another variation of this where there's a very, very light green chest armor and neck armor. That one's fairly common. You can find that. It's a little more expensive. For an 85 graded version of that, you're probably in the $300 to $400 range. Let's take a look at the grading real quick. This is a loose Boba Fett Taiwan base country of origin 85 plus, and then the other one is another Taiwan U85. So uncirculated 85. So I did get some pretty high grades on these, and it is kind of cool to see the different belt variations on these. But those are the 4 most common. Obviously, the 5th being the type font version that I just discussed. The other one that I do not have, there is a tri-logo variant. The tri-logo versions were made, in Europe, and the tri-logo variant for Boba Fett is very, very easy to spot. He's got a very, very light blue color to his clothing. The tri-logo variant was made with a lighter plastic quality, the lighter blue color, which I talked about. And then the country of origin, because all of the tri-logo figures, at least as far as I'm aware, do not have a country of origin. The country of origin on the back of the leg has been removed, so you have a scar. And there's a number of figures that have that, what's called a scar COO. And that Palatoy or tri-logo variant is one of those. The tri-logo version of Boba Fett with the light blue color, it does have a dark brown belt, so it's going to look more like the one here. And there's 2 variations with the tri-logo version. As you can see here, this lower part of his knee, where the kind of the utility pieces that kind of slides in, that can be either painted or unpainted for the tri-logo version. So, and when you see unpainted knee on the AFA sticker, it's referring to this smaller piece below the knee pad that my finger is pointing to. That can be either painted or unpainted for the tri-logo version. So there's 2 versions there. So technically, I would call that 5 major variations. There are some lesser known variations that are very, very expensive, just given Boba Fett's popularity. Lili Ledy made 2 versions of him. Lili Ledy is the Mexican, now defunct, obviously, manufacturer. They had one normal Boba Fett that looked very similar to these that you see here, except the paint quality and kind of the figure quality is a little bit less, just given that it was made in Mexico. So I would call that kind of a normal Boba Fett. But you can always tell Lili Ledy because the paint quality is terrible, and it's just not, it doesn't kind of hold a candle to the Hong Kong or Taiwan versions. And there's also another Lili Ledy where the rocket on the back that we talked about earlier is removable. It comes out as one piece. And those removable rocket Lili Ledys, I've seen a few of them out there. I found one on Facebook that was for sale. But to get one even in terrible condition is very, very expensive. The one I found on Facebook was a guy in Indiana who wanted to sell it. He had an 85 near mint example of it, and he wanted $4,800 for it. And he ended up getting it within about a month. So I don't have those kind of deep pockets, but you know, if you do see them, they typically go very quickly because they are very, very rare. I think AFA only recognized 5 or 6 of them in existence, as far as I'm aware, just based on what I found in the population report. But obviously the rocket firing Boba Fett that we talked about, there's it's kind of a myth at this point in the vintage collecting community, but there have been some confirmed examples of that figure. There's a number of videos on YouTube if you type in rocket firing Boba Fett that have been confirmed by Kenner employees or by the Action Figure Authority. And there's been some engineering prototypes that have been for sale, but you're talking, at least $100,000. There's one example of the rocket firing Boba Fett that was displayed at a toy fair, I believe in either 1979 or 1980, that was AFA-graded and confirmed. That's the only one that's known to be in existence of a carded rocket-firing Boba Fett. He was actually on Pawn Stars. His video is not very difficult to find online, but that example that he had in there is actually a confirmed rocket-firing, carded, mint-on-card Boba Fett, and he wanted something ridiculous for it, like $150,000 at the time. And I bet that if he listed that for sale now, if he hasn't already, he'd probably get that from a very deep-pocketed collector, given that it's one of one, and there's not going to be any others that are out there. But there are a couple of other minor variations. As I talked about, and I'll just kind of touch on again briefly because I only mentioned it briefly, but there is a light green armor variant for, I believe, the Taiwan version. It's a much lighter color than this. I don't see them very often for sale, but they do come out occasionally. You can see these two Taiwan versions. The one on your right is the darker color. There is even a lighter color than the one on the left, and that one, it fetches a lot more money. It's it's still attainable, but it's still very expensive. You're probably talking, for an 85 graded version, you're probably easily in the $400 to $500 range. And then the last one that is also extremely rare, according to AFA's population report, there have only been less than 10 of them, but there is a version of this Boba Fett figure where the helmet itself, you can see the kind of blue color to it. I'll turn it around so you can kind of get a better look at it. But where the helmet itself is unpainted. It's just a light blue factory plastic. The red has been painted, the black has been added around the faceplate, but the helmet itself is unpainted, and there are, I believe, less than 10 examples of that. And the last one just sold recently. It was $1,200 for an 85 graded unpainted helmet Boba Fett. So, again, very deep pockets for some of these. And these are just loose examples. If for anyone who's a longtime collector, they know this. A Boba Fett mint on card, it came on a Star Wars card, it came on an Empire Strikes Back card, as well as Return of the Jedi card, and obviously the Tri-Logo card, which is very difficult to find still. And then also there's a Droids cartoon card that is extremely expensive. There was a Droids cartoon in the late 80s, or I should say mid 80s, and they did have a Boba Fett version for that as well. And there's one for sale right now that's a graded 80 that they want about $4,000 for. So, but Return of the Jedi cards obviously are the least expensive, but there are a lot of Toy Tony fakes out there, so you have to be careful there. And then once you get into Empire Strikes Back and even a Star Wars, 21 back or whatever it is, many thousands of dollars. So those will never be in my collection unless I ever win the lottery. But it's nice to, it's cool to look at them anyway. I did also want to show you my 2013 Black Series Boba Fett. This is only a graded an 8.5. This is actually the only 8.5 graded Black Series figure I have in my collection. Everything else I have is 9.0 and above, but this is an 8.5 uncirculated modern scale grading. I won this kind of on accident a few years ago, probably about 2-3 years ago now, but it was a no reserve auction, and I put in something really low with about 5 seconds to go, and I ended up winning it. I think I got it for about $40. And even on an 8.5, which is not terrible. I mean, you're still, it's a very nice quality figure, but even an 8.5 today would probably go $70 to $80. This same figure as a 9.0, the last one just sold for about 160, 158, somewhere in there. So even the modern Boba Fett's, like the one you see here, can be fairly pricey. Just for those that are interested who do collect the Black Series figures, Hasbro did announce that they're coming back with a Legacy series for certain in-demand Black Series figures that have been released a long time ago. The first 4 in that collection in the Legacy series are going to be Boba Fett, Bosk, and IG-88, so 3 of the bounty hunters, and then Luke on the X-Wing, Luke in his X-Wing gear. So those are going to be the first 4. They're going to have totally different packaging. It's going to be a black kind of packaging, but it's going to be more similar to the packaging. You know, it's going to have a blister card like the 40th anniversary figures you see in the background of this video. So that is kind of exciting news. It's supposed to be later this year, but you know, again, there's going to be Boba Fett, Bosk, IG-88, and then the Luke and X-Wing gear. Boba Fett's the only one of those 4 I have, but my guess is I probably won't be going after those just because I want to get them on the original Black Series box art like this. You know, my gut tells me that those will not have a high resale value down the line, given that they're technically quote-unquote re-releases. But, you know, for those who want to collect carded Black Series figures and missed out on the first, you know, on the first runs of those, it's a great idea, and I'm glad Hasbro's listening to the collecting community, because Bosk, IG-88, Boba Fett, obviously, and then that Luke on X-Wing gear, all 4 of those, even, you know, ungraded, are very, very expensive. You know, relatively for a Black Series figure, you know, they're about triple or more what a retail Black Series figure costs, and then graded is even crazier. You know, a graded 9.0 and above Bosk IG-88 or even the Luke X-Wing, which is, you know, more common than the other 3. You know, you're approaching $200 for those easily. And you know, there's items that are listed even higher than that. But you know, in terms of a market value in a no reserve type of auction format, you can expect to pay for IG-88 and Bosk, you know, about anywhere from $175 to $200. The Luke and his X-Wing gear, probably a little bit less, maybe more like $125 to maybe $150. I bid on one actually recently and lost out. But anyway, that's kind of some good news, though. The other piece of that news regarding the Legacy series of the new Black Series re-releases is that they are going to be using like scanning technology for the face of Luke. So, you know, instead of the kind of the weird jawline and that we've seen for some of the others that I've kind of talked about in my videos, they're going to use like face scanning technology to improve the sculpt of that. And so that'll be kind of cool. I'm sure they're going to be doing something similar to that with IG-88 and Bosk, just to get them as, you know, close to movie quality as you can. But that might be the only reason that some people may want to pick those up. I don't know if I will. I probably won't. But so the molds will likely be quite, you know, just slightly different. The Luke will probably look significantly different if I had to guess. But the last I heard that those are going to be released in in early December. The other releases I've heard about are a Dengar Bounty Hunter release. That's supposed to be releasing around early December as well, like first week of December. So they got some new products coming out. I'm glad they're doing that. I'm glad they're listening to the community. There's people out there who's like, hey, look, I can't afford $60 or $70 for, you know, one of these legacy or one of these older Boba Fett's or IG-88s. And so they're like, fine, we'll re-release them and it'll be $20-25. So pretty cool that they're doing that. Anyway, I got off tangent a little bit, but I just wanted to talk about some of the different variants that are out there for Boba Fett. And, you know, these are 4 examples here. But, you know, prepared to, if you ever prepare, you know, if you want to get the whole set of different Luke variants, be prepared to have some deep pockets. But anyway, that's all I got for you. I hope you're all doing well. Talk to you later.